It is one of the most baffling serial murder cases in modern American history, centered on this lonely stretch of sand on the south shore of Long Island, New York. Gilgo Beach, a small community with a big mystery on its hands. The bodies of 15 brutally murdered young women, and there seems to be a pattern. Many of them under 5 feet tall and less than 100 pounds, all dumped in the surrounding dunes over a period of 20 years.
These girls did not deserve to die the way they did. They didn't deserve to have their bodies discarded in the manner. And the families and these girls deserve justice.
But as the body count has risen, confidence in anyone's ability to find the killer is at an all-time low.
They need to finally wake up and realize the victims, their families need information. I don't want to live the rest of my life wondering if this person's going to be caught.
Even the experts disagree among themselves.
I think it's the same serial killer. And as far as the speculation, we have 3, we have 2, we have 4, that's all silliness. Any homicide cop worth his salt knows that these cases are related.
And at least one guy might have some answers, if he can survive the questions.
What about all the other girls?
Ah! Jesus!
What was that?
We'll have more about this bizarre moment later. Not a day goes by that Mary Gilbert doesn't long for an answer to the death of her 23-year-old daughter, Shannon.
If you pick up the phone and call investigators or the detective that's been assigned to you, do you get calls back?
No, they won't talk to me.
Shannon had traveled from New Jersey to Oak Beach, Long Island, near Gilgo Beach, for a date. Later that night, she was seen running through the neighborhood in a blind panic. Gilbert family attorney John Ray has logged over 700 hours on the case, tracing her steps that night.
She runs out of his home. She calls 911. She runs through the neighborhood knocking on doors. And whenever someone comes to the door who attempts to call the police but not take her in, she runs.
And that's the last anyone's heard of her.
Talk to me about what happens. Talk to me about a phone call your daughter made.
911 call for help, lasting 23 minutes.
23 minutes.
Screaming.
Police cleared her date of any foul play, but she remained missing and her family pressed for answers. Former homicide commander of the NYPD Bronx Homicide Task Force, Vernon Gayberth, has worked hundreds of murder cases and has studied this one closely.
I don't think if Shannon Gilbert's mother didn't make the hue and cry that she did, that they would have done anything in Suffolk County. If that was some millionaire debutante from the Hamptons, I bet you there would have been a whole crew out there looking for her.
7 months later, police search teams find the body of a young woman in the weeds off Gilgo Beach. But it's not Shannon.
A police officer thought they found her, but they actually found another body along Ocean Parkway.
Police widen the search area, still looking for Shannon. Instead, they find the remains of 3 more young women, all of them like the first discovered body, strangled, stuffed in burlap bags, hidden in the scrub off the beach. Detective Dominic Varun is a former Suffolk County chief of detectives who worked on the case.
The initial 4 bodies, we believe, would simply, the killer simply drove along Ocean Parkway, pulled off to the side of the road, the shoulder, we believe, removed the body and tossed it into the bramble as far as he could.
As the case progressed, Mary Gilbert became friends with Lorraine Ela. Her daughter Megan Waterman was among the first victims found, 6 months after she went missing.
When I first got the phone call that Megan was missing, something told me, I guess I call it mother's instinct. I knew she wasn't coming back alive.
You knew that?
I knew it the day I got that phone call.
The following spring, police find 6 more bodies near Gilgo Beach.
This is the area along Gilgo Beach where the bodies were found. In the winter, it's cold, it's quiet, and it's very dark. But in the summer, at the time of the discoveries, there were a lot of people here. Now, out of those 10 bodies, not including Shannon's, only 5 have been positively identified.
When added with remains found in the wider area over 2 decades, some believe the killer may be responsible for up to 17 murders, more than half of them unidentified. The nameless victims include an Asian male in women's clothing and a mother and her young child.
It was a unique case because there was a disposal site. Not many serial killers maintain a body disposal site. Now, the psychological significance of a disposal site is that the killer goes back to this site much more comfortable, second, third, and fourth time, but gets to relive the event. Because the total control of another being is what drives them.
Police get their first break in the case when they made a connection with 24-year-old victim Melissa Barthelemy. Someone, possibly her killer, used her cell phone from Manhattan to call her sister with a chilling message.
This guy is a sexual sadist, there's no doubt about it. For him to take the phone and call Melissa's little sister and vividly describe what he did to her sister and how he's going to do it to her, that is him reliving the crime. The problem was that the cell calls were made from Midtown Manhattan and out in the island. They couldn't find him. There's too many calls. And then he disposed of the phone.
The disappearance of 23-year-old Shannan Gilbert leads to the discovery of multiple bodies of young women, most of them strangled and tossed into the dunes around Gilgo Beach in Long Island, New York. Now, investigators hunt for clues that could lead to the arrest of the Long Island serial killer. Former Bronx Homicide Task Force Commander Shannan Gilbert says the full court press should have started the day police found the first 4 bodies wrapped in burlap.
Everybody knows somebody in Long Island. And I'm telling you for the record that the person who did this was highly stressed, and people close to him would have seen a sudden change in his demeanor. He wouldn't have gone to work, he would have started drinking, he would have acted strange, and he would have left the area.
But some, like the Suffolk County Police, think that there may have been more than one killer involved. It's not the first time experts are divided.
The DA says there are probably at least 2 killers because of what they found. One where 2 bodies were chopped up, and the others where the bodies are intact. And so they say, well, that can't be the same method. I disagree. The killer can easily learn from his own experience on how to kill and what to do about it. And he changes over the course of years. And if the killer is intelligent, which this killer clearly is, they do change their methods.
Meanwhile, the families of victims are left to wonder while the investigation drags on. Lorraine Ela keeps the memory of her 22-year-old daughter, Megan Waterman, alive, while waiting and hoping for answers to her murder.
What makes this case so frustrating?
The thing that makes the case so frustrating is Suffolk County. This case is way over their head. It's a puzzle they need to put together. They don't know where to begin.
And then a major break in the case. 19 months after she went missing, the decomposed body of Shannan Gilbert is found near Oak Beach, Long Island. It's the same place she made her last fateful 911 call, a few miles down the road from Gilgo Beach. For her family, it's an occasion of sorrow and even more questions.
I got a phone call, and they told me that they think they found Shannon. And at first I was hesitant. I've heard it so many times before.
What not having Shannon here, what has that done to your life and all of your loved ones?
You know, they say it gets easier. When time goes on, it doesn't. This bull, it doesn't.
It gets harder.
It gets harder.
The search for Shannon's body is the linchpin that uncovered a virtual mass grave of young victims. But now the Suffolk County Police speculate that Shannon was not murdered, but accidentally drowned herself in a drug-induced haze. An idea that is soundly rejected by Gilbert family attorney John Ray.
The theory that Shannon used cocaine, became confused, tripped, fell, drowned, and meanwhile her jeans were somehow pulled off by the bramble bushes is the theory of the Suffolk County Police Department. It's an absurd theory. The water in the marsh is only inches deep. She would have to work at it to drown. And to end up where she did face up makes no sense whatsoever.
The Suffolk County Police have refused to comment on the case to Crime Watch Daily, but John Ray called for a second autopsy on Shannon's body by high-profile forensic pathologist Michael Bobbitt. An accidental drowning is nowhere in his conclusions.
The bone in her neck, known as the hyoid bone, it's a U-shaped bone, small, maybe about that big, and it has two ends or horns upon it. The horns are missing from the hyoid bone of Shannan Gilbert. That indicates strangulation. Every girl who's strangled, virtually every girl's hyoid bone breaks.
At this point, every stage of the investigation has been one more step into the unknown. But things get even more strange with the introduction of Dr. Peter Hackett. He was a resident of Oak Beach when Shannon was last seen there. And Shannon's mother claims Dr. Hackett told her he saw Shannon the night she disappeared. Gilgo Beach on the south shore of Long Island, New York. It's the kind of place where busy city dwellers go to find a quiet getaway. But for the Long Island serial killer, it's the perfect location for a body dump.
The serial killer with a disposal site has now relieved a lot of the stress because he knows exactly where he's going to bring the victim's body. Once they drop that body, they decompress, and now they're ready, and they hunker down and prepare for the next time out.
Some say he may have killed a dozen young women over 2 decades, but it was the disappearance of 23-year-old Shannon Gilbert that set the Gilgo Beach murder mystery in motion. Only 2 days after her disappearance, her mother, Mary Gilbert, hears from a mysterious stranger.
I got a phone call from a man. He said, my name is Dr. Peter Hackett. I'm calling to see if your daughter Shannon is there. I said, no. I said, you know, why? Who are you? And he said that he ran a wayward house for girls. Shannon was there. She was upset. He'd given her some medication to calm her down, and he was worried about her. Is she home?
Dr. Peter Hackett, a former physician for the Suffolk County Police, who was living in Oak Beach when Shannon went missing in the neighborhood.
I had asked him, how did you get my number? And he told me that, you know, it's the policy that if anyone goes to his, you know, his house, that he has to have contact information. And I knew that was wrong.
Gilbert family attorney John Ray says Dr. Hackett is a man who deserves a close look.
He never ran such a home. It's complete fantasy. And why is he making that particular fantasy in this case? You know, why has that not been thoroughly investigated?
At first, Hackett denied making any phone calls to Mary Gilbert.
Dr. Hackett denied on national television and in writing that he ever made those phone calls.
He later admitted making the calls when the phone records were made public. But Hackett claims he never said anything about running a home for wayward girls, and that he never met Shannon Gilbert. Crime Watch Daily reached out to Dr. Hackett's attorney, James O'Rourke, several times, with no response. In an interview with Newsday, O'Rourke said, quote, he never saw her, he never met her, he never treated her. And to this day, police won't even call Hackett a suspect.
They say that he's an exaggerator, he likes to put himself in the middle of things, but he's otherwise harmless. And from the facts that I have, that's dramatically untrue.
And when Shannon's body is finally found, 19 months after she disappeared, Mary Gilbert gets the shock of her life when police take her to view the scene.
One of the detectives picked me up in his car, drove me to Peter Hackett's house, took me on his back balcony of his house. And from his balcony, they pointed and showed me where they found my daughter, behind his house. I'll never forget that day.
You were on Peter Hackett's back porch.
Yeah. Why? Why would they do that? Why would they take me there? Out of all the other houses? Why did they not just walk me down close to the water?
The case has heated up with the Gilbert family suing Hackett for the wrongful death of Shannon.
Dr. Peter Hackett has given 3 depositions in regards to the Shannan Gilbert civil suit filed by her family against him. Now, he claims he had nothing to do with her death, but her family feels otherwise.
We caught up with attorney John Ray as he headed into the Suffolk County Courthouse for his latest deposition of Dr. Hackett.
What are you hoping to learn today that maybe you didn't learn before?
I'm hoping that Dr. Hackett will finally tell the truth about something. He seems to have not done that on most things. And possibly we have some questions that will elicit new information.
Peter Hackett has refused a formal interview with Crime Watch Daily, but we waited for him in the courthouse parking lot after his deposition to see if he had anything to say.
Did you run a home for wayward girls?
Of course not.
So you didn't have anything to do with Shannan Gilbert's death?
Of course not.
We never quite got his side of the story, but we certainly got a shocking interview.
So you never ran a home for wayward girls?
Nope.
And you had nothing to do with Shannan Gilbert's death?
That's correct.
But don't forget, Shannon's mother says he absolutely told her he ran a house for wayward girls in a phone call to her.
What about all the other girls?
Ah! Jesus!
What was that?
My defibrillator. You son of
911.
No,
right
don't.
now.
No, it's all right.
No?
I'm a doctor.
I'm calling 911.
You call 911, I'll refuse.
I'm gonna call 911. You,
please
sir,
don't.
Please, doctor, let me call 911.
Okay, would you find out these guys caused me to have a defibrillation? Just take pictures of these clowns, would you?
Despite all the drama, John Ray promises the case against Hackett will move forward.
There are wayward girls in this case, and they're all laying along Oak Beach. That's the home for wayward girls.
And just maybe, the mystery of the Long Island serial killer can soon be put to rest once and for all. The families of the victims deserve as much.
So Mr. Ray was able to help,
To help. And he still is.
and he still is.
And he's not gonna stop. Thank you, Jesus, until we get the truth.
And Mary sincerely doubts that her heartache is shared by the same man she accuses, despite appearances.
Ah! Jesus!
What was that?
My defibrillator.